Welcome to the 84th episode of the series Decolonizing the Mind. Today I'll talk about Nazism and the Victory Day in Russia and the Victory Day in the whole world on May 9. But before I do that, let's take on a minute to discuss what's happening in the world. And basically, what you see is that the Trump administration is slipping back to old politics of the Biden administration. They lifted the suspension of the military aid and intelligence sharing for Ukraine, while Trump wanted to end the war in 24 hours. Now he's giving military aid to Ukraine. The fourth round of Iran-US talks has been postponed, officially for logistical and technical reasons. But basically, the US administration, Trump administration, is very divided on how to move forward in the world. You have obviously this pro-war faction that wants to attack Iran, and then you have others who are more careful. So no clear line from Washington, and the Iranians describe the latest sanctions. Now, Trump has offered more sanctions as a further proof of the contradictory behavior and a lack of good faith. So the negotiation is going nowhere. The preparations for war are undergoing, but there's a lot of uncertainty. Let's see how it goes in the coming weeks. But one thing is important, that is how the rest of the world is developing now. And a key moment will be May 9th, this week, when Russia celebrates and commemorates the Victory Day in Germany 8 years ago. And they signed the German Instrument of Surrender on May 8th, and they invited a lot of countries and leaders to attend the celebration. It's not just an ordinary celebration. It is in the context of the Third World War, which might come if the Trump administration and the Americans are so stupid and NATO are so stupid to continue fueling military confrontation. I gave an analysis of World War II and fascism in two previous episodes. In episode 45, I looked at the Jewish Holocaust, and 56, I discussed fascism, neo-fascism. And in this episode, I'll build some of the things that were mentioned there. The fascism of Hitler really is different from the fascism that is arising now in the world. The strategy was to crush the Marxist and socialist movement with brutal and violent means, crush the Soviet Union, the use of racism to justify their policies, the Christian foundation, conservative Christian foundations of Nazism, their virulent sexism and anti-LGBT policy, and, as I explained in detail, waging war to colonize Eastern Europe. So the anti-fascist movement was on the rise in the 30s. In many countries in Western Europe, sometimes the coalition of communists and social democrats were building up, and that needed to be crushed, and with military means. And that is what fascism is. The whole ideological thing of Übermensch and Untermensch, super and superior, inferior beings, the biological superior race of the Aryans and the non-Aryans as inferior. This was all within, as I explained in the video, it is within the European Enlightenment. And then the Christian foundation Hitler places hatred for Jews in the context of Christianity when he says, "My feeling as a Christian points me to my Lord and Savior as a fighter." So when the Nazis took power in 1933, Hitler declared his national government that it regards Christianity as the foundation of our national morality. In today you don't hear these things because linking terrorism with Islam is easier than linking terrorism and fascism with Christianity. And then obviously women's role, confining them to motherhood and the household, excluding them from public life, and persecuting LGBT was part of the fascists. But the biggest thing was this: why did Hitler start World War III? It was not to exterminate the Jews. Hitler started the war to colonize Eastern Europe, destroy the Soviet Union, Europe, and the first act of war was not against Western Europe but against the East. He invaded Poland as a first step on September the 1st, 1939, to colonize Eastern Europe. And he said, "What India was for English, the territories of Russia will be for us. It should be possible for us to control this region to the east with 250,000 men plus a cadre of good administrators. Let's learn from the English who, with 250,000 men in all, included 50,000 soldiers, governed 400 million Indians. This space in Russia must always be dominated by Germans. The Russian space is our India. Like the English, we shall rule this empire with a handful of men." Not something that the people in the West would like to remember, but Hitler said this, and this was his policy, not in words, but in deed. So that's why I say World War II was not primarily about Jews. It was about colonizing Eastern Europe. Before 1941, Nazi policies toward the Jews was not based on extermination, but forcing them to emigrate from the Third Reich and not killing them in industrial ways. This policy, the introduction, the expropriation of Jewish property, introduction of laws to ban marriages between Jews and non-Jews, and occasionally using violence, like in the Kristallnacht on November 9 to 10, when a program was organized, these were all meant to not exterminate the Jews, but to force them to migrate out of Germany. Now, if you look at the victims of World War II, the overwhelming majority, 25 million people out of, the 40, 45 million were from Russia. And China, which had some 10 million people that they lost, the rest of Europe 11, but Russia bear the brunt of World War II. And that's why when we commemorate the victims of World War II, then we should commemorate the victims of the countries that made the largest sacrifice in freeing the world from Nazism, which is Russia. And if you look at the Holocaust, it was not about Western Jews, about Eastern Jews. The overwhelming majority, 51%, was from Poland, but all the other victims were from Slovakia, Hungary, Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, all of Eastern Europe. Now, the Marxist and Socialist movement were the major targets of the fascist movement in Germany, and it's understandable, that people think that fascism was only about capitalism. But thinkers of the global thought have a different views. They link fascism to colonialism, just as the way Hitler did. M.C. Serre, writing in 1955, reminded the Europeans that he has a Hitler inside him, that Hitler inhabits him, that Hitler is his demon, that if he rails against him, he is being inconsistent, and that at the bottom, what he cannot forgive Hitler for is not the crime itself, the crime against man. It is not the humiliation of man as such. It is a crime against the white man, the humiliation of the white man, and the fact that he appealed to European colonialist procedure, which until then had been reserved exclusively for the Arabs of Algeria, the coolies of India, and the blacks of Africa. So Franz Fanon echoed the same sentiment when he says, when I turn on my radio, when I hear that Negroes have been lynched in America, I say that we have been lied to. Hitler is not dead. When I turn on my radio, when I learn that Jews have been insulted, mistreated, persecuted, I say that we have been lied to. Hitler is not dead. When finally I turn on my radio and hear that in Africa forced labor has been inaugurated and legalized, I say that we have certainly been lied to. Hitler is not dead. So Fanon and César refer to the crime that Spain, Portugal, Britain, France and other European nations committed with the genocide of the indigenous people of Latin America, Abya now, European enslavement and the genocide committed in Africa and Asia by these powers. So there's a link between Nazism and colonialism, which is left out of all the Western narratives about Nazism. The system of segregation that was set up by Nazis for oppressing the Jews was in place and fully functioning both before and after the war in the European colonies, in South Africa, and even in the United States with segregation. In Germany, there were signs, no dogs, no Jews allowed, but these signs were put up by European colonizers in all the other places with their own hands. No dogs, no Asian, niggers, Africa. Even across Britain, there were private land laws posting signs, no Irish, no blacks, no dogs. So, the commemoration of the victory of Nazism is about educating people of the aims of Nazism, which was the colonization of Eastern Europe. The link between Nazism and the Holocaust is just a minor aspect. The link between the colonization of Eastern Europe and Nazism should be the major thing in our education. So therefore, Victory Day of May 9th is not only a victory of Russia and the Soviet Union, it's a victory of the world. So linking history with today and the future, then you'll see that the fight in Ukraine is a fight against fascism of NATO. Therefore, we need to build a peace movement with Russia, China, Iran, and the rest of the world. The genocide in Gaza is a pivotal moment in world history towards a new world civilization. That is what we're moving towards. And we link the liberation of Western Europe with colonialism. You see, Western Europe that looks at Nazism as they being the victims of crimes. With colonialism, they are the perpetrators of crime. So thank you for your attention. If you want to support this channel, subscribe to it, share it with friends and colleagues. Encourage them to subscribe and get involved in discussion group. And if you want to make a donation, look at sandavihira.com how to do that. Thank you for your attention.